Hi everyone, my name is Hannah and my puzzle game is called First to 14. Let's go over the instructions. First, you will want to shuffle the deck of cards very well, as this is crucial for the game being fair and more fun. Next, you can set the shuffled deck off to your left-hand side and draw 9 cards from the top. You can arrange these cards in a 3x3 grid face up in front of you. From this grid, your goal is to find pairs. You can either match 2 cards of the same number, regardless of suit, or match 2 cards that add to 14. You need to match as many cards as possible from the 9 available in the grid. Once you run out of potential pairs, you can fill in the rest of the grid with cards from the deck. You will want to repeat steps 3 and 4 until all cards are paired up. These steps will make more sense after an upcoming example game. Before we get into the game, let's take a look at some general information on the left and some specific game strategy on the right. First to 14 is very similar to games like Sudoku, 2048, and Mahjong, and the average time for one game is typically between 2 to 3 minutes. Additionally, there are no joker cards involved, and you do not need dice to play this game. The cards use values 1 through 13, and suits do not affect gameplay at all. The goal of First to 14 is to constantly try to beat your personal record, as this is a single-player-oriented game, but can be adapted to be played with friends. Lastly, you can also adapt this game to have various difficulty levels, such as using a half deck for easy, a standard deck for normal, and 2 decks for a hard difficulty. Now for some specific strategy. My biggest tip for new players is to match alike numbers first, then try to match summable pairs that may be more difficult to spot. Next, I have found that you can fill the grid faster by moving the leftover cards up to the top, so that you can fill in rows instead of filling in spots sporadically. To keep the game fair and fun, it is worthwhile to spend extra time shuffling cards at the end of every game. Finally, my last tip is to memorize the numerical values for ace, jack, queen, and king, or the pairings to make gameplay faster. Let's put these strategies to the test. First, I started out by dealing 9 cards in the grid, with the deck over on the left. Here, I highlighted the available pairs to easily demonstrate how the matches can be made. I started by pairing the 2 5s because they are identical, and then moved on to pair the queen and 2 followed by the jack and the 3, because they each add to 14. Notice how I omitted suits entirely from the cards to show that the suits are completely irrelevant for this game. Next, I moved all the pairs from the grid over to a pile off to the right. I included this step to show that I moved all the remaining cards up to the top to make filling the grid easier and faster in the next step. I filled the grid again from the left deck of cards. Take a second to see if you can spot any pairs. I started by pairing up the 2 9s, then the jack and the 3, then the 10 and the 4, and finally the 8 and the 6. Notice how memorizing the values and pairs is extremely important for these types of rounds. After moving all the pairs to the right, we are left with just an ace that we can move over to the left to fill the grid faster. I just filled the grid again for this round. Now that you understand how the game works, see if you can spot more pairs again. This time, I started by pairing the 2 4s followed by the 2 2s. This round, we did not need any memorization to help us. I moved the 2 pairs off to the right side pile. Then I moved the cards over to fill the grid faster. In this step, I filled the grid again. However, I am not going to tell you the pairs this time to give you some practice matching the cards. By now, you should have a better understanding of how the game works, so let's fast forward a few steps. Let's say this is the second to last round of the game. In this step, I can pair the 2 7s, followed by the jack and the 3, then the queen and the 2, and finally the 9 and the 5. After taking these pairs out, we are left with just an 8. Time to fill the grid one more time. Oh no, we only have 1 card left in the deck. In this case, just fill the grid as much as possible and play until all cards are matched. We only have one pair left to make, so this tells us we played the game correctly if all cards have been matched. After matching the final 2 cards, you can hit the timer and record your time. You win! How did you do for your first game? Let me know what you think of First to 14, and if you have any improvements for the game. Thank you for playing.